We're good to go. Okay, thank you. So we'll move back to the open agenda and we'll move to the first report in that agenda, which is on page 13, and it's the Future Development Strategy and an update from Robert. I'd also like, last time you saw Robert, he was at the other end of the room presenting on transport matters. So I'd just like to welcome him as the interim future-proof advisor, given Peter's resignation to go elsewhere. So welcome, Robert, and over to you if there's anything you wish to add to your report.
I don't think there's really anything to add to this report. It's an update really of the matters that we're going to need to cover off as we review the future development strategy, following on from the recommendations that came out of the hearings on the future-proof strategy, but also, as the paper sets out, achieving alignment with Matamata Piako coming in and with the business cases that have been underway for water and transport and a bunch of other matters. So this is just really raising your awareness of the work program that sits in front of future-proof for the first part of next year.
Thank you. And I would like to acknowledge Robert stepping into that interim role in a relatively quick period of time. So it's been great to get him on board. Okay, questions or comments in terms of that FDS update? Dave.
Yeah, look, thanks, Chair. In paragraph 4, Robert, you got talking about the project team working on the strategy following the NPSUD changes. I know that our council, along with Waipa and Waikato, the strategic planning people in those 3 councils, I'm sorry, I don't know whether Matamata Piako is involved in that or not, have been working together on a response to the NPSUD. I just want to sort of, I guess, be reassured that what they've come up with on behalf of our 3 councils is sort of going to be reflected by future-proofing rather than reinvented there. So comment in that area, you know, are we the ones sort of, have we done the guts of the work and you're just going to put the icing on it or what?
So, yes. Yes, although there are, we were gifted with some recommendations of further work to do in terms of additional areas to look at that hadn't been looked at thoroughly when the strategy was done. And as I say, there's in parallel, we've been working on things like the transport business case together, all of our officials, and the water detailed business cases, which we now need to just integrate in. So it's kind of bringing all the threads of the stuff Future-Proof's been working on together into the FDS.
At the end of the day, what we've said already and in our response to the NPSUD, etc., is going to be complemented, let's say, by Future-Proof's work over the next...
One would expect. It's the same people working on it.
Yeah, captured paragraph. Good. Yep, thanks.
Thanks, Dave. Any other questions or comments? No, that's fine. Axel.
Just a quick question around that NPS on the highly productive land. Don't disagree with your approach of waiting until we see national regulation. Can you just remind me, what is the time frame now? I thought it was actually meant to be out.
We were expecting it today, I think. So we were having a, has anyone seen it, search on our phones about lunchtime. It hasn't come out yet.
Sorry, I did have one more that I'd almost forgotten about. Elbow was jogged there. In 5B, we're talking about the rebasing and revising population employment projections, which we strongly support that being done. Just reflecting on a comment that I heard from some of the bigger developers in Hamilton today, that they regard the issue of the spillover from Auckland both in terms of industry moving here and population moving here, not just to Hamilton, but to the central Waikato area, as being a significant factor that is skewing the base population projections that Future Proof has already received from its initial study, and the individual councils as well. And they're all saying we're undercooking, and I know we had a couple of submissions that made that point as well. And so I'm just putting that out there that our council is going to want to be actively looking at this issue of spillover from Auckland, and they're talking about over the next 10 years perhaps before Auckland's land availability improves and zoning sorted and houses are being built sufficiently up there. And apparently for the second year in a row now, the Auckland population has actually dipped, not just the first year that was talked about, but the latest figures are showing the second year has also dipped there. And where are they coming? Most likely down this way. Thanks.
Noted. It's part of the conversation we're having with the University of Waikato at the moment around those projections. And the complexity is the lack of migration over inward migration from overseas. Immigration over the last 2 years is kind of playing around with the figures in the short term as well. So all that stuff will be wrapped up in our rebasing of those projections.
Muriel?
Just on that point, just on what you just said there, Robert, you know, when you start calculating in population coming in from overseas, I think the Waikato and probably Hamilton to a large degree hasn't been around migrants coming into New Zealand as much as, what do you call them? Refugees from Auckland and areas they can no longer afford to live. Economic, sorry about that. And, you know, and if I had to go into some of our communities, those people, and a big number have come out of Auckland, a big number have come from other parts of New Zealand looking for better employment opportunities too. Wouldn't necessarily say in the last 5 years it's been driven by overseas immigration. And I know you've got to calculate that into a degree, but it's not a high percentage.
Mirash?
Yeah, just when you're talking about population though, and trends and that, you know, it might also be helpful to flag the number of people exiting the country too, you know, when you're talking about total population counts, because, you know, Stats New Zealand have just put out, well, a few weeks back now, but, you know, over a million actively seeking leaving the country. And as we've seen in trends in the last month, 11,500 people leaving on top, over and above the amount coming into the country. So that is going to have an effect too. So.
Yeah, so that's all the kind of stuff we're working through with the University of Waikato at the moment. The team had the conversation with them the day before yesterday in terms of briefing out the work for them, and that net migration kind of factor is one thing. But overs.
No question. Okay, don't appear to be any further questions or comments. There's no one online with questions or comments. So I'll take you to page 13. And there's some recommendations there. If we can delete 3, because you've already provided comments, etc. So resolutions 1 and 2 are on the screen. So if we can have a mover and seconder for those. Thanks, Axel. Someone to second. Dave. There's nothing further. I'll put those. All those in favour? Against? Carried. So we'll move on to item 8, which is Robert's report on page 19. Just a very slight amendment to the resolution on the hard copy, and it's 2nd of September, not the 16th of June. So you can just note that. Robert, and we'll take the report as read, but I think, Robert, you wanted to comment particularly around the reflections paragraph.
Yeah, so at the risk of being overwhelmed with information, we're preparing a briefing for the new committee and for incoming councillors, and this is an opportunity for those of you who've been on the committee for a while to impart any comments, wisdom, thoughts, advice to future members that you would like us to record and pass on. Happy to take it in the meeting or outside the meeting later on, but I think it's part of the handover that I'd like to be able to provide to whoever's coming in the new triennium.
Thanks, Robert. Any top of mind thoughts you'd like to contribute now?
The only thing I suggest is, probably
Your mic.
forget about that. God, we have just automatic stuff, so it's still back in the dark. Man, oh yeah, I know. Sorry about that. Don't put my rates up to pay for it either. I think that, you know, obviously you're talking about some form of reduction. I think it's probably important to actually have an induction with the new ones once they're in, and once they've been confirmed by the partner councils, and it's probably something you could quite easily spend half a day on through it, where it's come from, where it's going, where it's gone, and where it's going. Certainly, it's of a size now where it requires an induction process. Council.
And I'll come to you in a moment, Dave. Just following on from that, Alan, any need or thinking around whether there's that the chair and advisor, say every 6 months or whatever, go to each of the partner governance groups in terms of providing an update, or do you think that's adequately undertaken by members of this committee back to your respective parent governance groups?
Look, I'll let Dave speak for Hamilton, but for us, you know, it makes up part of an agenda, an update. So these agendas are actually issued to the councillors, so they can actually view them and see what, and I've got a chance to ask Axel and I any questions. I don't know whether actually having yourself and Robert there or whoever to, it's probably not going to make much difference, to be honest. Yeah, I don't know, Dave may have a different view.
It's just an offer, it was there. If it's not required, that's fine also.
I was going to address that point partly anyway. We have frequently in the past invited Peter along to our strategic growth committee and on discussions like the Three Waters as well, because we wanted to educate him and future-proof about where we were coming from. So maybe for the reverse reason, Mayor Allen. but I think maybe early on, and then see how it goes, so that you can get the flavour of the new councillors, the two of you, on behalf of this wider organisation, and see where people are coming from, and they can sort of see the whites of your eyes then as well. But whether it's a regular program, I wouldn't. We certainly thought it was valuable at times to have Peter there, so that then he could interpret it when the backroom discussions are going on, where Hamilton City Council was coming from.
And certainly that opportunity throughout the trienniums are available to any of the partners for that to occur. Yeah. But perhaps that part is part of the induction in terms of particularly where there are the new members and that.
Probably just listening to Davey just tweaked my thoughts on that idea, because our council will be 50% new effectively, and I actually think it probably mightn't be a bad thing for yourself and Robert. Actually, it's not my decision to make, hopefully it's Axel's, but at the end of the day, I think it would be good, because then they can actually hear it from you, because sometimes when you've got new people, they seem to think, oh, what's been the mayor putting on this?
Yeah, we're going to have 6 out of 14 minimum new councillors.
Okay.
So I think there's some merit in that now I think about it.
Yeah.
Well, we'll look at winding that in as part of the induction process.
The other lesson probably that Robert was asking if there are any sort of pearls of wisdom we could, if one would be that any predictions we make in here are certain to be wrong, and that we therefore should have build flexibility into the planning.
I was going to comment about that when we get to acknowledgement.
Oh, sorry.
I think all the pearls are gone, haven't they, Dave?
Okay. I've got Axel then. David, did you then have a?
Yeah.
Axel?
Yeah, just reinforcing that comment around inductions. I think it's incredibly important. I'm not sure what Waipa's turnover will be, and Matters too, for that matter, and coming into this, but to actually get onto that it's actually pretty critical when you think of it. I mean, we want this to happen probably pre-Christmas. Is that too soon?
Yeah.
Because when councils had the post-Christmas break, you'd really want this to be one of the foundational bits that are just there. As these are not up for grabs. This is the work that's already been done. This is the foundation upon which you build. Right. So I think pre-Christmas rather than after Christmas would be better.
Okay. No, thanks, Axel. Now I've got Susan and then Katarina online. Susan.
Yeah, thank you, Bill. Look, I'm just inclined to agree with the gentleman. I think an initial induction sort of process would be really valuable for obviously your new members, but also thinking about our own council at Waipa. I mean, it's hard to crystal ball gaze and say that they'll, who will or won't be there. But I think it's a really good move to start the training with a face-to-face induction with your team. With each of the councils. So I'd certainly endorse that move.
Okay, no, thank you. Katarina.
Kia ora koutou. Hello, Bill. Long time no see. So as a long-standing member like some of you, it probably would be a good idea. So I tautoko the idea of it, because there are still even councillors today I don't think quite understand all of what future-proof means, especially if it's not in their area, Mata Piako for now is just getting in there. So I think it's a great idea, but it needs to be on par and precise around what exactly future-proof has or is doing and what's in the future, more than anything else. No one wants to care about the dynamics of it all, but what is it for the councillors of our areas that future-proof is going to be involved in going into the future?
Okay, Kia ora, Katarina, thank you for that. Nothing else online? Any other questions or comments around the table? So Robert and his team will liaise with your people, and we'll get that into the program. Picking up your point, Axel, in terms of a first foray anyhow prior to Christmas. Okay, if there's nothing further, on page 19, recommendation to receive Robert's report. Okay, if someone can move
I can do that. Katarina, I can move it.
Oh, okay, so Katarina, seconded by Mayor Allen. I'll put that. All those in favour? Against? Carried. Okay, how are we going for time? Just about 3:30. Thank you for that. Okay. No, and I'm going to leave the acknowledgements because there's a wee bit of time involved in those. So I'll leave those when we go back into open meeting. Okay, we will go back into public excluded. If someone to move and second that, Mayor Ash, I've got Chair Barry. I'll put that. All those in favour? Against? Carried. Okay.